Hello, everyone. So, if you're here and you decided to listen to more of my story, and it's really quite an amazing story when you look back at all that we've gone through and accomplished and had to overcome and the results that we've seen. It's been absolutely incredible. So, I left off with us leaving the hospital and having a 3 hour drive home back to Kansas, Manhattan, Kansas. And how devastated we were with the news that we had received that our son may never walk or talk, that we may never get to hear him say, Mom or Dad. Sorry, I thought I was going to have this more under control. But the thing is life is emotional and it's okay to show that emotion. It's okay to show when we're sad or when we've gone through something that's a struggle. It's okay to show those emotions and not lock them up. So sometimes you're going to see my emotion come through. And what's really cool is as I let it show, I hope that it encourages each one of you to be able to allow your emotions to show and allow your emotions to process properly so that you can gain some healing. Because so many times as parents with kids with special needs, we kind of have to grow thicker skin and we have to, I think sometimes we just kind of stuff our emotions and kind of hide away who we truly are and the things that we're experiencing because they can be difficult. And family and friends, they listen for a while, but then over time, sometimes it feels like it just falls on deaf ears, or not necessarily that they don't care, but it just kind of is like a circle and it kind of goes around because life doesn't change very quickly when you have kids with special needs, and you kind of tend to live in a space where you're completely surrounded with everything of that struggle that you're going through. So as we drove back home, and we probably spent several days just in tears and just not knowing which direction to go. And our son had been in physical therapy since he was 2 months old because we just kept pushing for more appointments and more information. And it just took until he was 8 months old to finally do testing to see what was really wrong. And as I talked with the physical therapist, she gave me different exercises to work on with him. And it was really difficult to just have hope that the physical therapy would even do anything. And at one point I was like, why bother? If he's just going to be in a wheelchair, why do I need to even bother to do these stretches? And why do I need to even bother to do these things with him? How much is it going to help? What difference is it really going to make for him if all he's going to do is have to be in a wheelchair the rest of his life? And it was really devastating and difficult to be able to find any hope. So after finding out this diagnosis, we were faced with the fact that Rylan had really severe epilepsy on top of the stroke that he had. So not only was he going to have the physical limitations, but then he was going to have cognitive limitations with his abilities to learn. But then he was going to have seizures on top of all of that and have these medical emergencies that we knew really nothing about or how to control or how to help him with. And so we worked very closely with the doctor, and at the time, Rylan started having seizures. And as they put him on medications for the seizures, his seizures actually got worse. They didn't get better. They actually got worse. And instead of putting him on one medication and trying it out, the protocol was to try a couple of different medications at one time. So if one medication didn't work, they would add a second medication. And then if a second medication didn't work, they would add a third medication. And the thought process was that if they maybe a combination of the medications could help kind of control the seizure activity and diminish it so that he could actually think and possibly be able to do things. Well, Rylan was having febrile seizures, which is brought on by anytime he would get sick. If he had a fever that would spike high, then he would have seizures with that. But then he was also having mini cluster seizures called infantile spasms. And this isn't as common. When you look it up, it's kind of hard to find information on it. And it's kind of hard to find medications that actually help it. And the doctor kind of freaked us out when we were in his office. He's like, well, there's a couple of different medications, and the typical one is Acthar gel, but I had a patient die on that last week, so I'm not sure if you want to do that. And immediately we just sat there and was like, no, we don't want to go on that. What are our other options? Because even with the bad diagnosis we had received, we still wanted our son to be able to live, and we still wanted him to be able to have a life. And so as we went through the motions of trying to find medications, this was devastating because the medications that they give for epilepsy are really, really harsh, and they have a lot of different side effects. And with the type of seizures that Rylan was having, it was really super hard to control. So Rylan would have clusters of seizures where he would fall forward and then sit back up, and he'd fall forward and sit back up, and fall forward and sit back up. And he got to a point where he was having about 45 of those in one cluster at a time. And he would have several clusters of seizures throughout the day. And it got to be where he could lay on the ground and or lay in your arms or lay in his bed and just have seizures all day long. And so his body, because it was so focused on trying not to have seizures, he wasn't able to learn anything else. So his mind was kind of shut down in other areas that made it limited so that he couldn't learn other things. And so as we started to use the different medications, we found which ones definitely didn't help, which ones caused really bad side effects, which ones made him gain a ton of weight, which ones made him grow a lot. He had one medication that he changed clothes sizes 3 times in 1 month. That's a lot of growth for a baby in 1 month. And it was because of this medication that he was on. And so we were getting ready to be transferred with the military to Colorado. And the doctor was still struggling to be able to help us be able to find a medication that would be able to help him. And he said, well, let's just leave everything where it's at for right now. Just keep giving him these medications. And he said we could put him on, he was on 3 different anti-seizure meds and an acid reflux medication. And he's like, how about if you want, we can add another medication to what he's doing to try to get him stabilized before you move. And I just sat there, and my very first question out of my mouth was, what are the side effects of this medication? Because we had seen our sweet little Rylan go from being very sweet and happy to being really ornery and just struggling with everything. And the doctor said, well, it's not approved by the FDA. You'd have to import it from another country. And then he said, and the side effects are he could be blind by the time he was 3. And I just sat there and I was like, are you kidding? You don't think my son has enough going on? You want me to give him a medication that can make him blind by the time he's 3? No way. And as I sat there, the doctor was like, well, if we don't get these seizures under control, then there's a good chance that he's going to die because the seizures are going to get too bad. And any hope that we had gained just like whooshed right out of us. And we're like, are you kidding? All of this, and then he might die? To have a doctor tell you that, it literally takes all of your hope and just like crushes it into little pieces, because you want to do the very best for your children. And it's devastating when you can't get answers. It's devastating when you can't find something that is going to help them. So since we were getting ready to be transferred, we said, well, why don't we leave it where it is, and we'll find a new doctor in Colorado and talk with them and see how we want to move forward. And as we did this, it was very difficult not to be negative and to just focus on all of the negative stuff that we had been experiencing. It was very hard to find anything positive to look at and to find in life at that time. And when you have a family member who is chronically sick for a long period of time, and it's every single day, it affects you, it affects your spouse, and it affects your other children in ways that you don't really anticipate. So I'm going to stop right there for now, and I'm going to come back. And I hope that you'll join me on my next recording as we learn new ways and new ideas to be able to help our families. So I'll talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.